good evening. It is November 6th, 2025, and welcome to another one of our branches on the vine with the Bible Project in this Wilderness series. The Bible Project, they created this series. We're going to discuss some of the videos and some other creative topics that they and we will explore. The videos we're going to be discussing, they're always just the tip of an iceberg. They are part of this learning series, again, that I highly recommend. And all of them can be found in the Bible Project app. That is, of course, linked in the description. So welcome this evening as we begin this discussion of wilderness on the Dusty Feet. Our hope with the Dusty Feet is to foster discussion and to help build and support communities. If you are not already connected to a community or just want to share and interact, this community has 4 primary ways to interact. 1. TheDustyFeet.com. That's our primary place to find everything. You are always free to comment. 2. Substack. Link is in the description below. It's designed around the written and spoken text. It's a place to connect to ourselves and others. 3. Facebook at The Dusty Feet. These videos and other videos are also available for comment and discussion. 4. And as always, you're welcome to send an email to bob@thedustyfeet.com. These places, they will be moderated and guidelines will be set to ensure healthy, safe discussion. And as always on the Dusty Feet, this is a place where we can safely explore the endless ways of God and the interconnection of His creation. Belief understandings may be challenged, divine misunderstandings may exist, and traditional teachings might falter as we pursue connection, context, and community with God and each other here in an environment of grace and love. Oh, and of course, before we forget, if you do find these kinds of podcasts to be useful, please, that is when you click that subscribe button. The reminders, those just help you. But also, if you think these might be useful to others, that is when you're supposed to click the like button, because that is how YouTube chooses to share these to more people if they wish. Wilderness. It's a big word, as in we tend to picture wide open spaces. I suppose also in the forefront of that might be the concern for, say, habitability. Yet all visions of wilderness are deserts, at least for us here in America anyways, because that whole wide open space, those vast tracts of land, right? Because they were offered to those that participated in the land rush, right? That heading west during America's own beginnings. So from the outset, I think we just got to make sure that we're thinking along the same lines. It might help us to understand a few things, but I also want to point out that even then, some of the issues, the concerns, the challenges, right, that they faced in the wilderness, well, they still could affect other pioneers of their day. But what I really want to do, this is what I really want to do. I want to talk about a side topic to this. I'm not sure if it's a side topic as much as maybe another way to consider how this might be part of the biblical narrative of the wilderness. And it ties to the beginning. I mean, the actual beginning. I mean, Genesis. Because one of the things that I've come to notice in Scripture, at least for me, let's make it clear, right? But these are some of the things that I believe I see in Scripture. And they are part of this repetitive, this cyclic development of several biblical topics that we explore. But one of the things that I've come to look at is that a lot of the stories is what I might think of, it's probably more of a visual picture than I know what it actually is. Okay, I don't want to make this confusing. Think of it as a ripple in a pond, okay? And what I mean by that is that the first stone, right, gets tossed in the pond. And the stone is small in relation to the size of the pond anyways. And there's a ripple, and it rolls out. It's a little bigger. And then that ripple goes, and it's a little bigger. And that ripple rolls out, and it's bigger, and it rolls out, and it just gets bigger and rolls out. Yeah? So I think within that, I guess maybe there's a thought that the original story and those closest have the most significant impact, and then it might lighten as it gets over time. That's probably for another discussion, but I think it's a good one. But the key is here is that the source that gives us the context for this discussion. The fact is, where did it start, that rock? Where did it come from? Like analogies and metaphors that we use often today, this particular thought line isn't necessarily all-inclusive, nor is it particularly clean. It's probably a little messy. But I hope we can conjure up some mental images and bring this story to life, right? See where we might go with it. So in the beginning, Genesis tells us about a beautiful garden where life's good, yeah? However, within that story, we have some other aspects that we probably don't think about much, mainly because they might make us uncomfortable. Or maybe we just never really took the time to consider them in a certain way. So let's begin with Genesis. We're going to begin in chapter 1, and we're going to scroll down, right? We're going to scroll down to our creation, and one could say possibly an introduction to our purpose. Start at 26, and then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every crawling thing that crawls on the earth." So God created man in his own image. And the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and he said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, over every living thing that moves on the earth." So you know me, and my propensity to think upside down, to sometimes look at things, and I wonder if we could maybe view them a different way, while still being respectful to the text. But I think in that, we ask many questions. Most of those questions, we probably don't have an answer. It's probably more about some of the things that we call answers today, things that we might want to bring out. I want to dust them off. I want to talk about them. Because I think we often look at this garden as if it is where we should always have been, where we all want to return to. So inside of that are the views of the garden. One is a place, and two, the relationships that happen in the garden. Because I think they're different. At the same time, I think we probably unintentionally group them together. And I think maybe it's worth looking at separately. Because in the text that follows about the garden, it is, as far as we might picture it today, it's probably a relatively small space. I mean, even if it was a space as big as, say, the footprint of Jerusalem, right, within the original land of Israel, but even today, by that standard, that's still small compared to the rest of the planet. Yeah? So, Genesis chapter 2, we're going to start in verse 8, right? Yahweh Elohim planted a garden toward the east in Eden, and there he placed the man whom he had formed. Out of the ground, Yahweh Elohim caused every tree to grow that is pleasing to the sight, good for food. The tree of life was also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now a river flowed out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divided and became 4 rivers. The name of the first is Pishon. It flows around the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. And the bdellium and the onyx stone, well, they're there as well. The name of the second river is Gihon, and it flows around the whole land of Cush. The name of the third river is Tigris. It flows east of Assyria. And that fourth river, it's the Euphrates. Then Yahweh Elohim took the man, put him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate it, to tend it. So Eden is a place one could refer to as a land, right? And within the land of Eden, there's a garden. This is very much imagery that these people would understand, a sacred garden space within a land, right? The rivers of water flowing out forth out of the land of Eden to feed the garden, and from the garden, it branched out to serve and probably feed so much more. because they flow, right? They're part of the other surrounding lands. Lands that are not part of the Garden of Eden. They're surrounding the land of Eden. Maybe one could say that they were, in a way, still fed by Eden, the waters from its garden, living waters from the garden. But were we, humankind, right? Were we never supposed to leave the garden? Was the purpose never to really leave the garden? That's a thought I think might need to stew on, simmer a bit, pause, reflect, because it's probably going to collide with some other thoughts, some other conclusions, even theologies. Possibly? I think definitely. But now, as I'd like to say, I can put those questions in a box, put them on a shelf, so that later we can open them up when we have more information. We can take some more time to address some of these questions. But I will, for the sake of this line of thought and discussion, we're going to say that the accounts and the consequences of Adam and Hava in the garden might have, let's call them, accelerated the go out. Right? That verse in chapter 1, verse 28, and God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, over every living thing that moves on the earth. So maybe that first wilderness, right, is just outside the gates. I mean, it definitely will not resemble the wilderness that the children of Israel wandered through when they began. However, I'll bet for the parties involved, I'll bet you it's still as frightening, as intimidating, because it's seen two things: a new space and a broken relationship with Yahweh. So, for this thought line, the rock tossed in the pond, the original wilderness. So, how we think about Adam and Hava responding to this accelerated exit and the consequence that you were always supposed to work the land, right? Genesis 1 gave us that hint. But now, well, it's going to fight you a bit. Not as easy as it could have been, the consequence of breaking that relationship. Yet the questions also hang, did Yahweh then now abandon them? Did he leave them all out on their own? So the story, here's where it can probably get a little messy. I think it's not direct. It's more indirect. I guess you could almost use the word inferred. But it seems as if God still had interactions. And maybe, I'm going to toss a word out there, expectations. Yeah. Because as soon as we leave the garden, and this is the wilderness to them for sure, it's mainly the wilderness for Adam and Hava, but it's the only thing that their sons have known. They as Adam and Hava, right? They continued that chapter 1 and to be fruitful, to multiply. Yeah. Cain and Abel are born. We know the story. It's a little choppy in its timelines, being fully aware that we really have no idea. There are theologies out there trying to figure things out, but the text is far from clear. So it leaves us open for debate and discussion. What we only have is that the passage of time has happened, growing up has happened, that has occurred, and these two now have their own relationship with Yahweh. So at this time, the text describes the interaction with God has with the sons of Adam and Hava, right? Involving offerings and discussions with God. Because it seems that God is communicating with them. God has not gone run silent, run deep. God is still involved in their lives. You could say even in their daily lives, right? We have offerings. Well, okay, you know the story. The purpose of this isn't to go into that part of the story. It's just, one, to make aware that, one, God is still interacting, and two, we're continuing that thought of now they know good and evil, those choices that we have while out in the wilderness. So my point is, this is the first ripple in the pond where we're going to go to in our next part, right? We're going to go through what might be that next ripple. Because now it's going to start to get bigger. And that wrinkle in the water, it's going to get bigger. We're going to get to Abraham, this next wilderness part of the story, that next ripple, that's going to lead to a bigger ripple in the pond. And maybe we'll see more. And I really wanted to open this discussion. This was the start. And then I think we're going to walk through these pieces. And it's going to get us to what we want to talk about. Then the wilderness. And then maybe this repetitive pattern, and when things we can discuss about this relationship with God, the expectations, the repetition of our actions, and as they look like with them, now maybe just on a bigger scale, our wider wilderness ripple, and what will our actions be? Will they be different? Will they be the same? So thank you for being with us tonight as we begin this discussion of the wilderness by just going further back, possibly to seeing where the whole thing started, on the dusty feet.